Remember, there's only room for one sovereign at a time, not two. So you can't be the same as the sovereign if you're the Prince of Wales or the heir.
The royal family is no stranger to headlines. But this time, things have taken a sharp turn. Just moments ago, a major announcement was made, one that has reportedly left Queen Camilla furious. What makes it more surprising is that she's not the only one affected. The Duke of Kent, among others, is also caught in the middle of this unexpected shakeup. But who delivered this announcement? And why is it sending such strong waves through the monarchy? Join us as we break down the royal decision that has reportedly affected Camilla. The unexpected changes began with the new reign. Once the king took the throne, the royal household began a full review of patronages, presidencies, and links with charities. This was not a small step, but a wide remapping of who would stay on as patron, which causes would pass to others, and which ties would end. Nothing on this scale had been attempted in decades. The aim was to make the new reign match today's priorities and the time available from working royals. It also showed early on that many of the roles once held under the late queen would not simply continue out of tradition, but would instead be looked at closely. Although the review took months and was done quietly, many people were shocked when the results were finally made public. Let's take a closer look at what really happened. The first big announcement that drew public attention was that many patronages would be given up. This was explained as a practical step to keep the family's workload realistic, but for the organizations, it came as a surprise. Hundreds of charities had grown used to the status of a royal link and had tied parts of their identity to it. The palace said it was not possible to keep every connection, so a cut had to be made. The move was presented as a way to direct energy where it mattered most, but it stood out as one of the first clear signs that the new reign would look different. Soon after, the results of the review were made public through lists and press notes. These showed in detail which groups would keep their patron, which would gain a new one, and which would lose the link entirely. For charities that had waited in uncertainty, this was a turning point. Those kept on felt relief. Those cut felt disappointment. Some had held a royal name for over a century, so losing it was a major change. A key part of the outcome was a bigger role for Queen Camilla. She was confirmed as patron of about 15 new organizations. These included groups for nursing, literacy, and volunteer work, areas she had long supported. For Camilla, this was both steady progress and an expansion. As Duchess of Cornwall, she had built a profile around reading and support for victims of domestic abuse. Now, as queen, her list was widened to reflect trust in her role and permanence within the system. The way it was shown to the public stressed that she was not just filling empty spots, but adding to work she had already done. Some charities that kept or gained her support made sure to thank her. Shelterbox, a disaster relief group, confirmed she would remain their patron. The Queen's Nursing Institute also voiced its gratitude, pointing to the importance of her link. These statements showed that the review was not only about losses, but also about gains. At the same time, another announcement showed how the royal family was managing change across generations. The Duke of Kent, cousin of the late Queen and one of the longest-serving royals, started handing over his military roles. Stepping down as Colonel of the Scots Guards was a clear sign of the times. He had served for decades, attending parades and regimental events, but age was catching up. His decision marked how older royals were slowly reducing their duties, allowing the family to rely on a smaller circle of working members. At the same time, the royal family pointed out the major renovation work going on at Buckingham Palace. The works had been running for years, but now they were a central subject. The project was called the most extensive in the palace's history. The cost ran into hundreds of millions, funded by a rise in the sovereign grant. The palace said the work was unavoidable, warning that the building risked serious breakdowns if nothing was done. Because of the works, Buckingham Palace could not be used as before. Another announcement confirmed that state visits and large receptions would be moved elsewhere. Windsor Castle and St. James's Palace were chosen as alternatives. This was practical, but marked a break with tradition. For many decades, foreign leaders had been welcomed in the same grand rooms, and their closure changed the feel of these events. The palace said the move was only for the duration of the works, but since the project would take years, the change was set to shape much of the reign, with such vast sums at stake. The cost of the works quickly became a public issue. There was debate on whether taxpayers should pay for the palace's modernization. Those who support the idea said it was essential upkeep for a national landmark and would prevent costly repairs later. The palace defended its choice by pointing to technical needs, while the trustees of the sovereign grant spoke of oversight. Official financial reports gave more detail. The household's accounts showed rising costs in areas like energy and staff pay. These reports were used to explain why cuts were needed. They also tied into the palace's wider message of modernization and tighter control of spending. The full size of the review became clear when reports said nearly 200 organizations were affected. This wasn't just a small change. It was a major reshuffle. Meanwhile, further changes continued among senior royals. The Duke of Kent's step back was part of a larger pattern of older royals doing less. Reports spoke of retirements and handovers. All of these decisions were meant to improve the system. But here's the twist. They've deeply affected several royals and continue to shake things up behind palace walls. One of the most surprising impacts is on Queen Camilla herself, who has reportedly been pushed to the edge by recent developments. But what exactly is driving her frustration? And what could this mean for her role in the royal family moving forward? Stay with us, because what we're about to uncover about Camilla might just leave you speechless. Even before the present changes, Camilla had inherited not only a title, but a heavy routine. From the moment she became queen consort beside King Charles, her calendar filled quickly with visits, speeches, and public duties that demanded consistency. With the king now receiving cancer treatment, the pressure on her to take on even more has grown. This has meant long days moving from one event to another, many of which last hours and involve travel, standing, and constant meetings with people. At her age, now in her late 70s, such a routine is not just tiring, but risky. And in recent months, there have been signs of strain. This pressure has already shown itself in missed events. When Camilla could not attend the Royal Variety performance because of illness, it drew attention, not only because the event is popular, but also because there are fewer working royals, so every absence is noticed more. Other missed events, such as Remembrance Sunday, also added to the public speculation. At the same time, money has become a point of tension. The sovereign grant, which funds the royal household, has grown in recent years, with large sums going toward palace renovations and estate work. For many, this is hard to accept during times of national economic strain. Camilla, as queen, is seen as part of this system and is often tied to the argument of cost versus worth. When she cancels visits or reduces her public role, critics quickly point to the rise in spending and ask if the country is getting value in return. Even though Camilla does not set the budgets, she is the face of the institution and becomes an easy target. The risk of being seen as slowing down makes this worse. For decades, the royal family built its image on duty without pause. Queen Elizabeth rarely canceled her public work, even in her later years. Camilla's breaks, though normal for her age and health, do not match that memory. Every time she steps back, the press and public see it as decline. The story is not just about her, but about an aging monarchy. The comparison to what came before makes her look weaker, even when her decisions are reasonable. Behind the scenes, Camilla's role is even harder. She is not only carrying out her duties, but also standing beside a husband in treatment. This mix of queen, wife, and carer puts stress on her body and mind. Balancing these roles leaves little room for rest. Small slips in speeches or diary changes then become headlines. Things that in private life would be forgiven are turned into questions about her ability to cope. The stress of such constant judgment can itself cause more mistakes. The groups who want the monarchy removed use this to their advantage. Campaigners point to the high costs, the fewer public visits, and the long list of missed duties as proof that the system no longer works. Camilla, because of her history and the debate that has always followed her, is used as a symbol of waste and weakness. But that's not all. Queen Camilla's charity work has also faced problems. One of her patron groups, Prospect Hospice, was forced to close shops because of money troubles. No royal can guarantee a charity's survival, but when this happens, it raises doubt about how much help her backing really gives. Camilla's health is also closely watched. Reports of chest infections, pneumonia, or even shaky hands at events have been shown widely in the media. These short moments are often shown and talked about as if they mean something big. A single photo or video can make a small issue seem much worse. Comparing the present to the past makes this feeling stronger. Queen Elizabeth ruled for 70 years and was known for being steady and always around. People remember her as strong. Now, many compare Camilla to that image, and also to the younger royals like William and Catherine, who seem active and full of life. Beside them, Camilla looks older and less confident. This makes some people think her role won't last long and that she's only filling in until the younger royals fully take over. The review of royal patronages made things more tense. Some organizations were allowed to keep Camilla's support while others lost it. People quickly noticed a pattern. Most of the groups she continued to support were related to the arts, books, or culture, areas that get a lot of media attention and public interest. This made people think that her choices were not fair. Less popular causes were dropped, and that made some feel like royal support was being given based on popularity, not importance. This hurt the trust people have in the system and in Camilla's role. There are also signs that her role in international duties may become smaller. As queen, she's expected to go on official trips to other countries. These trips help keep good relationships between the UK and the rest of the world and show the royal family's global presence. But Camilla's age and recent health concerns could lead to fewer of these trips. All of this supports a growing opinion that Camilla is not meant to be a long-term figure in the royal family. As more focus is placed on Prince William and Princess Catherine, people see Camilla's role as temporary, someone who's only there while King Charles is alive. Duties are slowly being passed on to the younger royals, and that makes it look like Camilla is not part of the monarchy's future. This weakens her importance and makes her seem like someone just helping the transition rather than being a key royal figure. Altogether, these changes suggest that Camilla's place in the royal family is becoming less central, and many are beginning to question how much longer she will stay in the spotlight. But Camilla isn't the only royal affected. The changes also reach other members like the Duke of Kent. So, who is he and what does this mean for him? Let's take a closer look. The Duke of Kent had long been one of the quieter members of the royal family. Unlike the central figures who drew constant attention from the press, he was usually seen only when duty required it. His life was lived mostly away from the headlines. He attended events, carried out ceremonies, and supported causes, but he was not the focus of the cameras in the way that others were. This gave him a kind of steady dignity, but it also meant many people knew little about him beyond his title. His work was long and loyal, though it did not bring the same spotlight as the younger or more central royals. That role began to change more clearly with his retirement from important posts. In April 2024, at the age of 88, the Duke of Kent gave up his long position as Colonel of the Scots Guards, which he had held for 50 years. For half a century, he had been the ceremonial head of that regiment, attending events like the annual Black Sunday service, where he would take the salute from guardsmen who gathered to remember their dead. Holding such a role for so long carried great meaning, and stepping down marked the end of an era. Just months before, in November 2023, he had also left his position as president of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, another duty he had carried for more than 50 years. His name had been tied to the remembrance of fallen soldiers across the Commonwealth for most of his life, and stepping aside showed both his age and the wider changes in the royal household. The man who is now taking a smaller role in the monarchy was born into it in 1935. Prince Edward, as he was known then, was the son of Prince George, Duke of Kent, and Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark. From the moment of his birth, his place in the extended royal family was certain. He was a first cousin of Queen Elizabeth, which gave him seniority among the wider circle of working royals. That closeness to the reigning monarch kept him in view, even if he was never at the very center of the institution. His bloodline tied him to both the British throne and to European royalty through his mother's Greek and Danish background. His childhood was touched by loss and duty. In 1942, during the Second World War, his father, Prince George, was killed in a plane crash. Edward was only 6 years old at the time, yet the death meant he inherited the dukedom at that young age. Becoming Duke of Kent so early placed a heavy responsibility on him long before he was old enough to understand it. That moment tied him to the wartime generation of the royal family, those who carried heavy burdens during Britain's most difficult years of the century. From then on, his life would be shaped by the expectation that he would uphold the traditions of his title and serve as his position required. As he grew older, service became his chosen path. Like many royals of his time, the Duke joined the military. He was commissioned into the British Army, serving with the Royal Scots Greys, among other units. His years in uniform gave him discipline and close ties to soldiers. He advanced through the ranks and eventually retired as a lieutenant colonel. That background guided much of his later ceremonial life. His military career gave him both authority and experience when representing regiments and supporting veterans. His personal life also reflected both duty and a quieter path. In 1961, he married Catherine Worsley, who became the Duchess of Kent. Their marriage brought a link to the English aristocracy, and together they had 3 children. The Duchess later chose to step back from many public roles, preferring a quieter life. She even worked outside the royal spotlight as a teacher. This gave their family a slightly different place compared to other royal households. They remained tied to duty, but did not always stand in the full view of the press. The Duke himself carried on with a wide set of responsibilities. Over the decades, he became patron or president of numerous organizations. He served as Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England, the head of Freemasonry in the country, for more than $50. Years before stepping down in 2017, he was deeply involved in organizations linked to the military and remembrance, such as the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, veterans groups, and various charities. Unlike other royals who focused on one main cause, his work was spread across many areas, though always in places that valued tradition and history. Among his most visible roles was his link to the Scots Guards. As colonel for 50 years, he attended their ceremonial events, acting as a figure of respect and loyalty for the regiment. His presence at those occasions reinforced the bond between the armed forces and the monarchy, a bond central to royal identity. His decision to leave that role was more than just personal. It marked the passing of a duty that had tied him to Britain's public life for most of his adult years. His closeness to Queen Elizabeth was another defining part of his life. The Duke of Kent often appeared at her side at events such as Trooping the Colour. As cousins, they shared both family ties and duties, standing together at moments of national meaning. After her death in 2022, those appearances ended, and his role changed again. The reign of King Charles brought with it a reordering of responsibilities. Given the Duke's age, his visibility naturally lessened, and without Elizabeth's presence at the center, his place in the public eye became smaller. This shift under King Charles was also part of a bigger plan. Charles has long wanted a smaller monarchy with fewer working royals in constant view. The Duke of Kent, as an older member of the extended family, was one of those whose roles would naturally be reduced. His retirement from major duties in 2023 and 2024 fitted this new picture. At nearly 89 years old, the Duke's health and age also set limits. While he has not spoken much about his health, it is clear that travel and ceremonies take more energy at such an age. Stepping down from positions like Colonel of the Scots Guards or President of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission was also a way of easing those demands. Still, his presence carries meaning. The Duke of Kent is a living link to earlier times. His life has stretched across the reigns of George VI, Elizabeth II, and now Charles III. Today, his role is far smaller. His main contributions are remembered in the groups he served so long. Like the Duke of Kent, the new royal changes have also touched the younger royals in surprising ways. One of the most affected is Prince William, whose public presence has grown sharply in recent times. But beyond just being more visible, there's a deeper shift happening in his role, one the public rarely sees. Keep watching because what you're about to discover may change how you see the future king. With Charles becoming king, William is now the direct heir to the throne. This change did not just move him closer to becoming monarch. It also brought new tasks that were both practical and symbolic. One of the biggest was taking over the Duchy of Cornwall, which for hundreds of years has belonged to the heir. The duchy covers farmland, historic houses, and many investments, and it gives income to support royal duties. For William, this was not only an inheritance but also training for the future. Managing the duchy means making decisions that affect communities and land across Britain. For Catherine, the change was just as important. As William's position became stronger, her own role also grew. She had to be seen not only as a royal spouse, but as the future queen consort. Her number of public appearances increased, and she became a central figure at events. Balancing. Her duties with her family life became part of her public image. Alongside this, she continued her work in early childhood development, building projects like the Shaping Us campaign, which looks at the first years of a child's life. This focus gave her identity inside the family. Catherine was no longer only supporting William, but was also building her own voice and influence in areas where she wanted the royal family to make a difference. With fewer members sharing the royal workload, William and Catherine naturally took on more. They became the main younger figures at ceremonies, state occasions, and official tours abroad. The loss of Harry and Meghan in 2020 made this even clearer. When the couple stepped away from royal duties, the family lost two people who had once been expected to share the load of engagements and charity work. The absence left a gap that needed filling, and much of the weight fell to William and Catherine. They became more visible. Their responsibilities stretched further. What had once been a shared duty now became theirs to carry almost alone. And this shifted how the public and the world saw them, not only as heirs, but also as the main figures who would keep the monarchy running smoothly. The death of Prince Philip in 2021 brought another major change. For more than 70 years, he had stood beside the Queen, helping with countless causes and appearing at hundreds of events. When he died, there was a clear hole in the family's work. William and Catherine stepped forward to take on some of the roles Philip had supported. They appeared at events he would once have attended, keeping alive the traditions and duties he had held for so long. The Queen's death in 2022 was the biggest turning point. With her passing, William and Catherine rose higher in both rank. For William, it made him the official heir in the clearest possible way, with new roles tied to his title. But for Catherine, it tied her directly to the memory of Princess Diana, whose image as Princess of Wales still lives strongly in the minds of the public. As Prince of Wales, William's diplomatic duties grew larger. He began to represent Britain abroad more often, meeting leaders, attending world gatherings, and making visits that carried both political and cultural meaning. His trips were not only about ceremonies. They were about showing that the monarchy still has a role in building ties with other nations, especially after Brexit, when the country looked for new ways to keep its voice strong abroad. William's ability to stand as a steady figure on the world stage has become one of the clearest parts of his new role. Catherine's work grew in its own direction. Her focus on charities, especially those linked to mental health, education, and childhood, became central to how the family presents itself. She did not only take part in existing projects, but also created new ones, putting her own name and energy into building them. Her Shaping Us campaign is one of the clearest examples. It shows how she has made her own space in the family's public work. Raising their 3 children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, has also become part of the public story. William and Catherine have tried to give them as normal a childhood as possible while slowly bringing them into public life. George, being second in line to the throne, is already part of big national ceremonies and is learning what his future will hold. Charlotte and Louis, too, have been seen more often at events, giving the public a look at the next generation of royals. The couple's way of parenting reflects a more modern style, closer and more open than in earlier times, but still shaped by the duties their children will one day have to take on. The smaller circle of working royals has also given more space for other younger members of the family to be seen. Princess Beatrice, though not a working royal, has been more present at state events since Harry and Meghan stepped away. Her sister Princess Eugenie has taken a similar path, using her position to support causes close to her. She has spoken openly about scoliosis, which she herself has faced. Like Beatrice, she's not at the center of the working royal team, but her efforts show how the wider family can support the crown's image in ways that, while less central, still matter. Her work gives her a place in the family story without adding to the core workload carried by William and Catherine, Zara Tindall. Princess Anne's daughter also shows another way the family connects to the public. Though she has no title, she has stayed close to the family and often represents them in sporting life, especially in equestrian events, where she has made a name for herself. Her role is not official, but it adds to the image of the family. All these changes have placed more weight on William and Catherine. As Prince and Princess of Wales, they are now the central figures who carry both the tradition and the hope for the future. Do you support the new changes in the royal order? Are they truly necessary? Share your opinions with us in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the following video on your screen and you will enjoy it.